All right, let's talk about the future, specifically 2026, and what is shaping up to be the next colossal battle for the top spot in the desktop PC world. We're talking Intel versus AMD, and trust me, this showdown is shaping up to be absolutely epic. Let's get into it.
So let me ask you something. Are you already thinking about your next PC build? I'm not talking about this year, maybe, but looking ahead a couple of years. If that sounds like you, then you are definitely going to want to pay close attention to this. And here's why. Because 2026 is the year the entire consumer CPU landscape could get turned on its head. Intel and AMD are on a direct collision course with their next-gen architectures, and believe me, the outcome is going to affect gamers, creators, and AI pros for years to come.
Okay, so to really get what's at stake here, we first need to set the stage. You gotta understand, this isn't just two companies trading blows for bragging rights. It's way, way bigger than that, and it's all happening in a market that's evolving like crazy. See, this whole rivalry is playing out inside a booming industry. I mean, the semiconductor market is on track to hit a mind-boggling $755 billion in 2025, and a huge chunk of that is being driven by this relentless, insatiable demand for AI. So in this environment, getting that performance crown isn't just about feeling good, it's about grabbing a massive piece of a very, very big pie.
And you know what makes this a real showdown? The timing. Neither side is getting a head start here. It looks like both Intel's Nova Lake and AMD's Zen 6 are aiming for the back half of 2026 for their big launch. That means a true head-to-head clash right in time for the holiday rush. It's perfect.
All right, first up in the ring, let's talk about Team Blue. Intel's whole strategy with Nova Lake can basically be boiled down to one idea. More is more. They are going all in, and I mean all in, on their hybrid architecture.
So, Intel's game plan? Basically brute force. We are talking about a flagship CPU with, get this, up to 52 total cores. That's 16 of their big performance cores, 32 of their smaller efficiency cores, and even 4 new low-power E-cores. But it's not just a numbers game. They're also adding a big last-level cache to go right after AMD's dominance in gaming, plus some seriously powerful new integrated graphics. But honestly, the real headline grabber here is that massive NPU, or neural processing unit. It delivers 180 TOPS, and yeah, that stands for trillions of operations per second of pure dedicated AI muscle. Intel is clearly betting big that on-device AI is going to be the next huge thing.
Okay, so now let's flip over to Team Red. And AMD, well, they're taking a completely different approach here. Instead of just throwing more and more cores at the problem, their focus with Zen 6 is all about making their signature chiplet design smarter, leaner, and way more efficient. So yeah, on paper, a 24-core flagship might sound a little, well, modest next to Intel's 52-core beast. But the real magic is what's going on under the hood. Zen 6 is going to be built on TSMC's cutting-edge 2-nanometer process. That is a huge deal and should let them crank up the clock speeds. And it's also a big change for AMD, as they're moving from their classic 8-core chiplets up to new 12-core ones for the very first time.
Okay, so quick detour. For anyone who's not familiar, this chiplet design is basically the secret to AMD's success over the last few years. Instead of trying to make one single, gigantic, perfect piece of silicon, which is super hard and expensive, they build their CPUs from these smaller, specialized modules. It's just a smarter, more flexible way to build a powerful CPU. And with Zen 6, they're taking how those chiplets talk to each other to a whole new level.
And the big innovation with Zen 6 is how these little chiplets talk to each other. The old way had a bunch of extra steps that just added delay and wasted power. The new way is a much more direct, high-speed connection between them. The best way to think about it is like this. They're ripping out an old, winding country road and replacing it with a direct, 10-lane superhighway. This is going to boost power efficiency and slash the communication delays between the cores.
Okay, so let's just boil this down to the big, flashy numbers. Let's put these two philosophies side by side. In Intel's corner, you've got the brute force approach, an absolutely massive 52 cores.
And in AMD's corner, the smarter, more refined strategy, topping out at 24 cores. Yeah, it's a huge difference on paper. But like I said, that number doesn't even come close to telling the whole story. Now let's talk AI. This is where Intel is bringing out the big guns. We're talking a 180 TOPS NPU. That's a sledgehammer.
Meanwhile, AMD's NPU is so very capable, rated at over 50 TOPS. But you can see the difference, right? It shows a completely different strategic focus for each company.
So, that brings us to the million-dollar question. What does all this actually mean? how do these wildly different strategies translate to real-world performance? Like, who's going to win when you're actually rendering a video, playing the latest game, or running an AI model?
Well, based on what we're hearing from leaks and early predictions, the picture is, well, it's complicated. And that's what makes it so fascinating. There is no one-size-fits-all winner here. For stuff like video rendering that uses every core you can throw at it, Intel's huge 52-core advantage is probably going to crush it. Same goes for AI, where its NPU is just in a totally different weight class. But for single-threaded speed, AMD's more advanced 2-nanometer process should allow for higher clock speeds, giving them the edge. And in gaming? Well, AMD's X3D cache is legendary for a reason, and it's expected to keep the crown.
But raw performance is only half the battle, right? For most of us, the actual cost of upgrading your whole system is a huge factor. And folks, this is where AMD has a massive, massive advantage. Intel's Nova Lake is going to demand a brand new motherboard on a new socket. But AMD has promised to stick with their AM5 platform, which means if you already have an AM5 board, you could just drop a new Zen 6 CPU right in. That is a gigantic win for value.
All right, let's pull all of this together. What does this actually mean for you, the person who's going to be spending their hard-earned money on one of these things?
So, let's break it down real simple. If all you care about is squeezing out every last frame per second in your games, you're going to want to wait for the AMD Zen 6 X3D model, which should land in early 2027. That's your gaming king. If you're a content creator or a pro who needs the most multi-core power you can get for things like rendering or AI, Intel's Nova Lake is looking like the obvious choice. And if your top priority is value and having an easy, cheaper upgrade path down the road, the AMD AM5 platform is the undisputed champion there.
So in the end, the big battle of 2026 really boils down to a choice between two very different, but honestly equally awesome philosophies. So the question I want to leave you with is this. When the dust finally settles and it's time to open your wallet, which side are you going to be on? Are you going for the raw, unadulterated power of Intel or the smart, refined efficiency of AMD?